Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited to finally kick this off. I'd like to welcome you to the first ever episode of the YNOT and Shyway Show, brought to you by Series E. We're finally doing this. We're finally talking shop, talking about Halo Esports, news, updates, rosters, drama, everything that comes to mind in the world of Halo Esports. Tony, I think it's about time we finally covered it. We basically have been doing this since Esports Arena began, just annoyingly, right? Like we talk, I think, a little bit too much. And eventually, the viewers, they wanted a full show. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy to be here. I call this barbershop talk. You know, when you're in the barbershop, we're talking sports, we're debating, we're having a good time and whatnot, and talking about everything. We're just fans who love talking about Halo, so here we are doing it.
Right. Just, instead of having to do it in between games, let's take a full hour. Let's just talk about all the things we love in Halo and Halo Esports, all the new updates, because it is crazy in the world of Halo Esports, and not enough people, I think, are talking about it. Before we jump in, though, Tony, how you doing, man? How's your day been? I know you've been grinding Halo probably all day. You are just relentless on the grind, my dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's been tough, but it's been rewarding. I stream in every day, 2 podcasts a week, casting 4 times a week, and at this point, I put a tweet out saying I'm praying to Bound that he gives me strength to make it through these weeks.
I don't know why Bound you pick specifically.
Because he's a god.
Okay, there you go. How do you do it, Bound? Help my man out, Tony. But it's not even just that, right? Like, you're playing Halo, you're also like working out and streaming at the same time. Like, explain to me how the heck that works. Like, I jump in your stream and I see you doing shoulder press like in your gaming chair on broadcast. Like, my guy, how are you putting it together?
We do 4 reps per sub, and then we do 1 rep per 50 bits that are donated. And yeah, there was a week straight where I didn't go to the gym. So my punishment was, I'm like I need to get my card, I need to get my lift on, and that's how that kind of came to be. So I said I'm going to keep training like a Spartan until I look like a Spartan come the next HGS event.
Right. Though I'm just trying to figure out how you're gaming and then lifting weights in a gaming chair. Like, that can't be good for form, my dude. What are you doing? How? Like, believe
it or not, the form actually is immaculate. Like, people have come into my stream and they're like, bro, like, how was your form so good? I'm like, I don't know. This I have a hand-me-down chair that was gonna be thrown away by my neighbor like 2.5 years ago, and I was like, hey, can I get that? I cleaned it up, and that's what I use right now. And somehow it is the perfect proportion, broken and all, to have perfect form.
Okay. All right. I'll take your word for it. I can't do that. I got to segment it, right? I got to go to the gym, work out, play Halo, but all I'll say is I appreciate your damn energy, just relentless energy. And that's why we got you here, right? Because I know you're going to keep the energy going, and because I know we've got a lot to talk about. We got to do a lot in a short period of time, okay? Today's episode is focused on the NA Super. We have to get to the bottom of this roster mania. This is the biggest roster mania I think we've ever seen in the history of Halo Esports. And if you're coming in and you're wondering what happened to these teams, this episode, it's going to settle the score, okay? We're going to figure out who went where and what you should expect coming into the NA Super, which, by the way, is a $125,000 online tournament. I think the largest prize pool we've ever had for a Halo online tournament, at least in the better part of a decade, Tony.
All I'm saying is, they're paying out from first to 20. Yeah. I'm just saying, if you're trying to get a team together, we hop in the hyperbolic time chamber for 2 days and whatnot. I think we come out looking Super Saiyan, and maybe we get a piece of that prize pool. I'm saying, bro, like, dude, you got to realize, Sentinels are terrified of us. They know.
I was going to say,
we've been watching. No. You can't call that. They have Royal 1. We've been watching their gameplay closely, though. We know how to counter them. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying we got to get out there.
We got all their strats down. That is a great. But who? Like, do we get Wes on the team? Do we get other casters? Do we got to pick up a young phenom, right? I don't know what Carmea. I know he's like still, kind of finding a roster, right? We got to take Envor, right? We got to grab somebody who's kind of just still trying to figure it out with the team. But we are going to let you know who has figured out who has a roster at this point, right? Now that we finally kind of come to the close of Roster Mania, we've got a first graphic to bring up as well for the viewers. I believe we'll start with pool play, just so you get a sense of where teams are landing in the NA Super, of course, coming up next weekend. This is what is confirmed. this is what we know. There's still 4 open slots on the graphic. Those 4 slots will be filled by the end of this weekend. This weekend, we've got an open qualifying tournament, the final one by LVT. Shout out to Louis V. Titan, who'll be putting that broadcast on. Myself and Tony will be casting there. Those slots will be filled. But, Tony, just based off of what we've seen, you want to give us a quick run-through?
Yeah, and actually, I think this Sunday actually is the Super Open. It's technically not even classified as a qualifier. Apparently,
Okay.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to do so. We obviously know who the top 4 teams that made it in last week's qualifier, which was the 24th, and we know who are the ones who missed the mark. You know, the likes of Crowd Pleasers, the likes of that team with Envor, and I believe Carbea and Alex Shock. You know,
yeah, I'm trying to remember the name.
Even SSG missed out on the opportunity. So
that's a big one.
I would say those are probably the favorites to make it in, to fill in those 4 empty roster spots.
But for now, what we at least have on screen, of course, if you're a listener, we've got Sentinels, E United Complexity, Pool A. We got Cloud9 FaZe, Oxygen, Pool B, Optic, G1 Fnatic, Pool C, and then Pool D is Pioneers, G2 Lions. Already confirmed. Will be in the tournament next weekend. But, Tony, I think what's more important for now is let's dive into some of these individual rosters, teams who have qualified in advance, who finally locked in their 4-man team. This has been chaos, right? I think amongst the roster mania, only 2 teams didn't move players around, right? I think it's just Optic and Sentinels are the only 2 teams out of all the rosters that have not changed in this roster mania. And I think that might be unprecedented, I think, in Halo Esports.
It really has been, and I can't wait to dive into each of these rosters because, you know, for one, I thought the Pioneers would have stayed together forever, like from birth to retirement home, and even that
right.
was a roster
that
took a change. But we got a couple teams to get to before we actually get to them. But yeah, you're right. Only 2 rosters remain the same, and one of them almost got shaken up. There was one that almost,
right.
So there almost was only one.
And yeah, and they ended up, you know, sticking together through thick and thin. We'll have to talk about that too, Tony. But for the listeners, let's just, if you don't mind, give me a quick rundown of the players on each of these teams. Let's just run through it.
So, I mean, with Sentinels, you got Frosty, Lethal, World 2, and Snake by Cloud9, Bound, Eco, Penguin, and Stellar Bound coming over from FaZe, Optic, APG, Formal, Lucid, and Trippy. Pioneers rocking Druck, Soul Snipe, Taulik, and then snatching Nick up from the United via trade. G2 rocking Gilkey, Sabinator, Straight Sick, and Redacted, who we believe to be Barcode. G1 bringing in Pre-Devastator, Swish 5, Squale from Kansas City, but also Boo Boo Dubu coming in, formerly of FaZe. Speaking of FaZe, a total new roster, it feels like. You have Snipe Down and Falcated coming in, but joining them is Renegade, formerly of Cloud9, Spartan, formerly of E United. That you probably ask yourself, well, what the hell do E United look like? They're actually rocking Ryan Noob and Rain again, stealing Suspector from Exit, and like we kind of mentioned before, trading King Nick over to the Pioneers and bringing in Manny. Those are your top 8 qualified teams. There's also Complexity, Oxygen, Fnatic, and Lions who qualified through the July 24th qualifier.
Well said, Tony. And yeah, based off of what you just said, the biggest changes, undeniably, FaZe and E United at the end of that phase. My God, we got to talk about them and just how much their team has changed around. And then E United, I'm glad they turned out the way they did. I was not sure what to expect, but they actually look like a God squad as well. And then, of course, those final 4, or not final 4, but I guess to round out who is already qualified, we'll do our best to touch on them as much as we can. Note that, once again, this is a 1-hour show. We're going to go through every single one of these teams, just a little background on them, kind of their performance so far. By the time we do that, Tony, I don't know, we're probably already bleeding time as it is. I'll take it. 10 minutes already gone, by the way.
I was going to say, we only went through 10 minutes. We didn't even start the show yet.
Right. We got to be fast-paced. All right, so let's start with Sentinels. Take it away, Tony. Sentinels, what are we looking at?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Sentinels, you got obviously have Frosty, Lethal, World 2, and Snakebite, like we mentioned before. You have Frosty, the former MVP, in my opinion, tied for first place in the as the best player in the league, tied with Renegade and Lucid right now. Yeah. You have World 2, who has been a dominant slayer for as long as I can remember. World 2 is one of the most dangerous players that we have in our league because he just simply, when it comes to point and click, he doesn't miss a shot. Yeah. Snakebite, kind of co-IGLing with Frosty. A great mind for Halo. A very aggressive player. Definitely not afraid to do the dirty work. An entry frag player as well is Snakebite, which always been impressive how you can have that big of a brain and still be on the front lines. It's tough. Like normally, that IGL type of role will sit back behind their teammates as a shield, but no, he's up there. He's in the trenches, which I always thought was quite impressive. Frosty, the same thing. And then you have Lethal, who at one point we thought that he was going to be cycled out of this roster for Renegade. That was the rumors, and I believe those rumors to be true. Obviously, things didn't go exactly the way they wanted to, so Lethal's going to remain on the starting roster, and I'm glad because I think that Lethal does a lot for this team outside of the stat sheet that maybe people aren't witnessing. And I think he's an incredible talent. I think he's an incredible winner. And I think, every team needs someone to do that dirty work. And I think Lethal's the one that comes in for Sentinels with that three-headed monster, Frosty Roll 2, and Snakebite stuffing the stat sheet. Because we all know they can drop bombs at any given point.
Oh, for sure. That's the biggest thing I think with Sentinels is when you look at this team at this point, you cannot deny that they are the modern-day dynasty, right? Like there is no team that has stayed in that top form for this long. Not even Final Boss have stayed this consistent this long. And, that's just a testament to the ability of this team. Dude, I'm already losing my train of thought. Where do I even begin with these boys, right? So damn talented. Tony, I think you already covered a lot of the big ones, though, right? Lethal, just trying to find a place on this team, because arguably, when it comes to LAN, this team just shows up, right? You can never count them out of that first place LAN. Go back to KC. They did take it. Of course, they struggled a little bit with Raleigh and Anaheim, fourth place kind of coming in. And I think Lethal's always kind of taken the kind of, notoriety, I guess, in the spotlight. Because when you look at Snakebite, Frosty, and Roll 2, you could argue that all three of those players currently on LAN are best in the world, or arguably best in the world, right? So I think it puts Lethal in that tough spot. I wonder if it was external pressure that led to him almost leaving the team, or if it was a team decision. In the end of the day, we can never really know, right? But the speculation was that it might have been Renegade coming in, couldn't come to terms with it. You wonder what does that do to the chemistry of the team? Do they still have... I'm assuming they still have that close relationship. And Lethal, you wonder, does he have, what will he kind of come back into form as that top player, especially considering his history as a top player? He's one of the best, of all time at this point in his performance. You expect him to come back. Where are his passions at, right? We haven't seen him streams too much in recent history, but you can never kind of count Sentinels, that dynasty, out of first place. Let's jump over to C9. Tony, give me your thoughts on this one. We'll try to keep it short as we can with some of these teams. C9 with just a smaller change to their roster.
You have Stellar, who's always been the secondary slayer on Cloud9. I've always been impressed with him, and is a reason why he's one of West Clutch's favorite players that we have in the league. Penguin, another player that's willing to do that dirty work. I was doing some statistic work for with LVT not too long ago, and Penguin, most caps, highest hill time consistently for not only this roster, but sometimes in the entire league. Penguin, again, not afraid to do the dirty work, but also can slay out. Eco, Frosty's called him one of the smartest players that we have in our league. And then on top of that, with Renegade leaving this roster and bringing in Bound, I think Bound is a phenomenal fit for this roster. But there was some big shoes that needed to be filled. Eco has stepped it up as not only an intelligent player, but also as a main slayer on this roster. He's been stepping up in the stat sheet. And then obviously you have Bound, who is so creative with his movement, so aggressive, like the definition of an entry frag player, doing as much damage as possible and opening up so many lanes for his teammates. I think he plays the role well. I love Bound on this roster, and I'm still in love with Cloud9.
Very well said. I like that you brought up the point about Eco. He's become a total playmaker at this point. Every time I watch his POV, he's doing something insane. And yeah, I completely agree that Bound is a good fit for this roster, mainly because I feel like he's got a freedom that he didn't have on FaZe, right? With FaZe, you had kind of like conflicting, I want to say, chemistry and paces of play. Like you got a snipe down and a boo-boo that kind of play a little bit slower. Bound, he wants to go wild. He does crazy stuff. He's pushing the movement meta. He's doing, wild like ninjas with grapple, or, thrusting out, challenge with a curb slide. He wants to be able to, I want to say, express himself and have the freedom to play at that insane pace of play. And I think that Cloud9 can create that environment for him. Somebody like Penguin, like you said, so objective oriented, can kind of create that perfect environment for Bound to do exactly what he wants to do. So ton of potential there. And of course, as both a LAN team and an online team, they maintain their performance, right? First place, both Anaheim and Raleigh. Second place in Kansas City. A bit surprising to see a change at all, considering how dominant they've been, but they made the change. They're still looking good. On to Optic. Optic, I want to say, our online dynasty at the moment, the dominant team online. On LAN, we're still kind of figuring it out. What do you think of Optic, Tony?
Well, number one, I just want to say that I find it not you, because I never heard you say it, but I find it very disrespectful that a lot of people are calling Optic an online team. I think there's a big difference between saying that a team is an online team and saying a team hasn't yet found that level of success on LAN just yet. They haven't won a championship on LAN just yet. And there's a big difference. Like, calling somebody an online kid in competitive esports is downright disrespectful. This squad
you know why they're doing it, though, by the way? Not to just interrupt you. First of all, Optic has held to very high standards, understandably. They got a huge fan base. The reason why is because they are so definitively the best online team, is what it feels like right now. Maybe, between Cloud9, they'll trade blows, but like, you look at scrim stats, and this team is insane online. You wonder how they even lose games on LAN. I think that's why the expectation comes in, where they think like, oh, it's only an online team, because of their just sheer dominance online and the juxtaposition of it all. But anyway, hopefully that
like I said, I think there's a difference between calling them an online team and saying that they just haven't found that success on LAN yet, because I mean this roster is put together to win championships. APG and Trippy is two of the most unselfish players that we have in our league with pop-off potential. Formal, phenomenal communicator. Sounds like an auctioneer half the time. I'm ready to bid when he's calling out there in the listens. But it's a shot is solid, man. Let me tell you, steady shot from Formal. Just a good fundamental. Almost reminds me of like a Tim Duncan on like a Spurs back in the day. And then you have Lucid, well, like I said, in my opinion, tied for first place as best in the league. Some might argue me and say that he is number one in the league right now. We can have the discussion another time, but I think Optic Gaming is a roster that's built for championships, and whether it's the Super, whether it's Orlando, whether it's Worlds, I don't think it's a far stretch to say that they are going to win a tournament this year, a major one.
It really does seem like it's becoming like kind of an inevitable kind of reality, assuming they continue at the pace that they're continuing at. So I'm definitely with you on that, Tony. My thought on Formal, I want to say like best centering in the league. If I had to give it like a term, like it's not just his accuracy, it's his approach to aim. And then Lucid, like you said, absolutely disgusting all around. The entire team, they're so clean as a team. Their timing just seems impeccable, and we get to see them more than we get to see anybody else. So I think it's also that there's this, we have the opportunity to kind of scrutinize and just be in awe of their performance. And they don't shy away from it as well. They just go ahead, they stream their POVs. We get to kind of learn from them, but always expect to see them perform. Of course, going back to KC, I think Sentinels is the big, kind of enemy, the big boss for them. I mean, I remember Formal saying that I think he got checked by the shock play mid sword lunge on the bat ledge. He got headshotted by Royal 2 with the shock, right? Sentinels, they show up on LAN. I think that's the big beast for them to overcome, and there's a lot of kind of storylines there. We'll touch on it, hopefully. But let's move on, Tony. Pioneers next.
Oh, Pioneers.
Keep it going.
Pioneers have had up and down season. They've had
consistent.
They have high.
Actually,
I'm sorry.
So up and down, like you said, but actually they've been 5th, 6th Kansas, 5th, 6th Anaheim, 5th, 6th Raleigh. They have maintained their placement at LAN exactly, basically the entire their entire season. Well,
they've had high highs.
Sure,
but they've also had low lows. They've beaten teams, and not even just on LAN, but online. Like, okay. They've pulled upsets on teams, punching above their weight class. But I feel like they've also had some losses against some really hungry teams that maybe they shouldn't have lost to when you look at some of those open events. So, yeah, I mean, luckily the LAN events places hasn't changed just yet, but I hope that they don't. I don't want to see them drop below top 6. I don't want to see them drop below top 8, because this is a roster that can really contend with some of the best. You're talking about one of the most aggressive rosters that we have, always on the offense, always putting their opponents on their back foot and being as objective efficient as possible. I love Soul Snipe and the objective efficiency that he brings to the table. Taulik, who can sneakily drop a 26-4 with you without it ain't even flashy. It ain't flashy at all. The man just hits his shots. It's like a mini Royal 2.
He just does it.
And then you have Druck on the team, who's kind of an all-around player.
Some of the best
can do
movement.
it all.
Some of the best movement in the league, I would say, with Druck. That
very
dude,
creative.
He is creative.
Very creative with the movement. And then King Nick, who was brought on this roster to bring a level of veteranship, a level of leadership, and hopefully the consistency that they need all around, not just at the 3 major events, but also in online, also in Pro League and the others, because that matters too.
Yeah. I like, so, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I like this roster on paper. I like what King Nick brings to the table on paper, but I want to see it convert. I want to make sure that they continue to get that top 6 placings during these major tournaments that really matter, where the lights are the brightest, and so far they have, and I'm excited to continue to see that. I'm hoping to see that.
Right, and of course, the perspective for the team is, first place or bust, right? Like, they want to do better than top 6, so hopefully whatever, this changes with Nick kind of cracks the code a bit. I think the biggest thing that you brought up that I think is so great, and I think, did you say it was like a conversation you had with Soul Snipe? You said, what does King Nick bring to the team? And you said veteranship, kind of like a leadership perspective, and I thought that was so interesting because we'll talk about it when we get to E United. King Nick and Ryan Noob. I don't think it's a secret if you kind of watch their scrims. There was a bit of a friction, I think, between King Nick's play style and what Ryan Noob wanted to see from King Nick as a player. And what's interesting, that idea that putting him on this team, King Nick kind of has the opportunity to be in that veteran position. He doesn't have to combat, I guess, with that big brain of Ryan Noob, and that might kind of allow the team to explore, these different avenues or kind of, push past placements that they've kind of been stuck in, like we're saying, 5th, 6th. And that's an interesting storyline, I think, for Manny as well, who's now moved off to the team over to E United, because I think that means that he can also fit perfectly in that roster as well. But we'll talk about it. So Pioneers, a lot of potential, small change, but I like the fact that you talked about the leadership aspect of King Nick that he can bring to the team. Let's move on to G2.
G2, it's funny. I said form reminds me of a Tim Duncan with the fundamentals. Damn it, G2 remind me of the entire Spurs.
Okay,
it's not flashy. They're setup heavy and they play the chess game. But when they get into the defensive setups, it's so hard to break through. One of the reasons why I always love watching the G2 and Pioneers matchup, because you have the ultimate aggression versus the ultimate defense. And that's what G2 kind of bring to the table. Gilkey and Straight Sick have been doing it for so long.
Right.
Sabinator, so underrated as a slayer, as a top 5 underrated slayers that we have. Suspector's there too. We'll talk about him later.
We'll talk about him.
And then the 4th player is most likely Barcode. Barcode officially no longer in ANZ. He's here.
He's here
in America. He's in Texas, living in Texas. So I believe that where there's smoke, there's fire. And I think Barcode's been playing with the G2 boys so much. I'm gonna assume that Barcode is on here, and we may not know much of him in North America, but he's a phenomenal player both inside and outside of the game. It can contend with anybody in the league. Is going to prove it. I could do it in North America, and then on top of that, just has an infectious smile.
He does.
Just
he
big,
brings the vibe.
Happy, I'll say even goofy, but in a good way. It's just when you're in the room with Barcode, you can't help but just smile. He's just such a good dude. So I honestly love what he's going to bring to G2 again, both as a talent, but also the intangibles he's going to bring, because he's just so good. He's just such a good dude.
Yeah, right. And we got the chance to meet him in Kansas City, and I think just how personable he was, how easy he was to talk to. I think people underestimate how much good vibes brings to the performance of a team, and I feel like that was one thing that on top of his individual skill in comms, Formal brings this great vibe, I think, to Optic, and not that Ola didn't. Ola's a legend, and too bad he's not even in this discussion. Tony, I would love to take a second and just talk about what happened to the Wizard, but. Formal, I think immediately you recognize that the team, they just clicked together. The vibes were better. I think maybe Barcode can bring that, though I have, witnessed him tilting a little bit as well. As talented as he is, he kind of goes up and down with whether or not his teammates are helping him out in matchmaking. But that's matchmaking, I think, in general. Yeah. One thing I'll say for sure with Barcode is this dude is a freaking demon. He's the real deal. And we're learning as we watch him play. A player coming in from ANZ. ANZ is a smaller scene comparatively. This is him with the snipe. By the way, I had to pull this clip in because the dude is he's cracked as hell with the snipe. He's so quick with the snipe that I just couldn't help but just show a couple clips of the man But when you're coming from a smaller scene like ANZ, I think the expectation is that they won't be quite as developed at that top level as an esport. But Barcode is different, man. Something's diffy about him. I was watching twos yesterday with Renegade. It was Renegade and Tusk versus Barcode and Neighbor, and eventually Renegade and Tusk, they kind of snapped into action. They started winning. But the first few games, Barcode and Neighbor were running them over, and Renegade was like he was kind of mauling a little bit, just so surprised at how cracked this dude was with the snipe and the plays he was making. So I just, I can't wait. I'm a fanboy already. I think Tony is. I can't wait to see what he brings to the team. And then on top of the fact that, like you said, you got the veteranship of Straight Sick, arguably one of the best FFA players of all time. He's been in Halo for so long. I remember him back at the Reach FFA, like the BIC championships, right? Gilkey back from Halo 3. Just once again, a very established competitor, very talented, could pop off at any time. And then Sab, like you said, underrated main slayer potential. So G2, great potential there. They also got Ogre 1 as a team manager, which is a cool pickup. And then they got Callus as their coach too. G1 now. Let's move on to the next one, Tony.
Well, you'd be happy to know that Straight Sick can hit snap slides on a dime.
Can he?
He says he's the snap slide king.
Okay, I'll be the judge.
Yeah, watching Gilkey and Straight Sick, man. Let me say, it bring me back in the day while I was stuffing my fat self with pizza and wings and watching the MOG events. I loved watching them. But a G1, I love this organization.
This is. I do love the org, dude. The org, man, they're great. Go ahead, you go ahead, Tony. They're killing it.
And just like their philosophy, both in game and out, and the intangibles that they want people that they want their players to bring, I think I love it. I truly love it. I'm really a fan of G1, and just going in, getting to work early, working out, getting that team camaraderie in, before they even sit down and pick up the controller. They're in there putting in the work outside of it. And honestly, people might not think it's a big deal, but I think it is. I truly do.
I think
G1.
People, sorry, just people kind of fail to realize the effect that not just fitness, but just figuring out everything else in your life around the game and the effect that has on the gameplay, right? Like the key is not necessarily to know life and game 14 hours a day. Sometimes, maybe you should cut into that time and play, 5 to 6 hours, but spend time working on yourself, building up your body, etc. And I think G1 have a great mindset for that. I'm following the Eli the Sensei workout montage that he's been going through, right? The man's been hitting the gym. I think the entirety of G1 definitely they got a good vibe that they bring to Halo.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Ace coming off, his first game is the reason he's the most dangerous player in the league. Fresh off of meditation, iPad, the man is levitating while not even holding his controller at that point, just beating you with telekinetic powers. G1.
I'll take your word for it.
You got Squale, who I didn't know too much about, but every time I watch his gameplay, I'm always impressed. I've never watched a Squale gameplay and thought anything negative about it. I just think he plays the game the right way. Swish and Boo Boo Doo, they're cut from the same cloth. You got two high IQ players. You have two players that are not cheating the grind. They are absolute grinders and will put in the work. I love what Boo Boo Doo and Swish bring to the table. I love them together because they really remind me of each other. I know Swish personally. I think I know Boo Boo Doo very well. They really are cut from the same cloth. And then, man, I don't. It is a disservice to this, I believe, former serviceman, that we are not talking about Devonator. It is
snuck right back in,
embarrassing.
man. He just snuck right back into the scene.
He did, and he's so freaking good, and it's so funny because anytime you mention G1, you mention Boo Boo Doo, you mention Swish, but Devonator's just flying under the radar and is low key the most dangerous player on the roster. Like legitimately, the man pops off. Just look at the stats, look at the eyeball test. The man just checks every single category. It's just like I said, the IQ's there, the gameplay's phenomenal. He's always getting kills. The man looks good, smells immaculate, was probably the most popular guy in his high school. He has everything going for him.
All important for competition, clearly.
Absolutely.
Well, I think what people, understandably, but I think what people kind of fail to realize with Dev, though, is he was, at one point, I want to say, a top player in Halo 5, right alongside Contra. He actually teamed with Boo Boo at one point as well in Halo 5. So there is some historical kind of chemistry between Boo Boo and Predominator. Then he just disappeared. And then he just came back, right? I'm not sure if he was grinding in between, but he just, like, the moment he decided to come back into Halo Esports, immediately he's, like, jumping onto G1, onto a team. So I think, like you said, just kind of testament to his ability as a player. I think this is, like, one of the biggest wild card teams, right? Because if you go back in their performance, like, before this team was formed, you've got, like, Raleigh 17-24, 13-16 in Anaheim, 9-12 in KC. They do continue to improve, like, incrementally and just kind of sneak in. But now I think they're a big deal with this roster, especially with Boo Boo jumping in. Very interesting. Squally, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, even without him, they got a top 3 finish during one of the Open Series,
right?
And then with them,
without Boo,
they ended up winning. So I mean, even past, more recent, because I feel like it's been a while since Kansas City. Even more recent, they still had an upward trajectory. Grab Boo Boo Doo Boo and then fly off the graph.
That's the game plan, exactly. That's what we're waiting to see. It's like you said with Squally, for me, he's kind of a question mark. Definitely a talented player. I'm very curious to see what he puts together. And then Swish, what an interesting storyline as well. Like you said, you knew him on the come up. I sort of did. He's like a friend of a friend, right? Didn't he come up through like the Spartan V Discord or something? We had like a little group. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, Tony. But
the Spartan 5 program.
Spartan 5 program, right. So he's somebody who's been in the weeds, like in the trenches for a while. And made the right connections, kept grinding, found himself subbed onto big teams. Like, next thing you know, he's got his in. He's been doing this for a long time, though, right? It's, like, really cool to see his trajectory, I want to say.
I don't know if he was actually with that program, but I don't know. It could have been, but I remember when I first started hearing him, it was back at the Bama Lands when I was playing with the Pro Shots, Colex, and then eventually even Collect. Back then he was going by Zolda. Back then Collect was, and Swish was there as well. And then I got to meet him in person and whatnot. He was the first one I seen play with his controller behind his back in the octagon. As hilarious, but yeah. I've known him for a little time. We butt heads a few times. I've even past it. I've coached some of his teams. So we've had an up and down relationship. At the end of the day, I've always had respect for him, and not only his mind for Halo, but also the natural talent that he has.
He has definitely kicked my ass in Halo 5 Octagon as well. Just to add to that, by the he's an Octagon kid, I think for sure. Yeah, personal experience. Anyway, look out for G1 is what I'll say, right? Bit of a wild card. FaZe. We got to talk about FaZe and United, arguably the biggest teams to talk about here. Tony, let's jump into FaZe.
Why are we talking about FaZe? What do you mean?
Why? Yeah, I wonder. Why talk about FaZe,
who's
right?
on their team? Tell me who's on their team right now.
Just they're not super well known, Tony. They're not they're kind of just on the lower end of the spectrum, I want to say, in terms of popularity. Snipe Down, Spartan, Renegade, and Falcated. What do you think?
I'm flabbergasted.
Okay.
That's their roster? I'm shocked. I didn't know this.
We only just found out. We didn't know months ago that they were already playing together.
You didn't know months ago. I knew. I knew June 1st. I don't know what you're talking about. Look at my YouTube videos. You'll find out. I knew since June.
That's fair. And I mean, shout out to you, Tony. Honestly, if you're not aware, Tony does a copy, basically this, on YouTube in more detail. So if you want like an extended version, Tony's got all the details. He's got like you said, you knew about this for, I want to say, months. Now, it was not a very well-kept secret. They changed their weapon skins. At one point, this is like a week ago, too, Spartan turned his Twitter off as well. He's like in loading phase, 50% or whatever, right? That was pretty cool.
Renegade at the end of his VOD yesterday talked about his journey and why he left Cloud9. I'd recommend some of you guys go and watch it towards the end of his stream. But yeah, it's Renegade, Snipe Down, Spartan, Falcade, and a lot of people are looking at their recent scrim results, and they have not hit the ground running. Yeah. But I talk about it all the time. The only time success comes before work is in the dictionary. You give FaZe time. Give them, time to come up with a game plan and come up with, an A, B, and C. Because again, it's not even just about what happens when you're running over a team. When it rolls downhill, it rolls fast. It's what happens when you go 2 or 3 down. What's your game plan? Are you sending, are you 4-man pushing through your base to try to clear out your flag on a Aquarius? Are you sending a 4-man overextension? Are you doing a 2-and-2? Dedicated resource? Like when they come up with that game plan at that level and go through it in practice. That's when I'll start judging FaZe. They're new.
Are you worried? Are you worried about chemistry at all? Like, there's no denying that this is just like 4 main slayers put together in a sandwich, basically.
Not in the slightest.
Okay.
I think Renegade and Spartan absolutely incredible together. We saw that in the 2v2. We saw Snipe Down and Falcated work really well together. Snipe Down formerly teaming with Spartan, and Renegade and Snipe Down even teaming together playing Apex. So I like this roster a lot.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I think that's great. A lot of people are questioning, oh, they don't have an objective player, they don't have this, that, and the third, they don't have an IGL. First of all, I'll be very clear with this. In 2022 Halo, I don't think there is an objective role. I think there's a player that does a dirty work, but when you have the likes of Spartan, Falcade, and Renegade, we're not talking about Slayers that are baiting each other. We're not talking about them sitting across the map and long range. We're talking about players that are in the action. On Aquarius, they're not sitting top mid. They're in utility. They're getting in the face. They're pushing spawns. They're putting pressure. And while they're doing that, the opponents go 3 down, and one of them said, "Oh, you know what? I happen to be near the flag. I'm going to pull the flag."
In a perfect world, every team is completely flexible. They can do all the positions if they need to, just based off the scenario at hand. That said, though, I'll counter you and say, what is Penguin to Cloud9? He is definitely the OBJ player. He's consistent in that, like you said, his flag pulls, his captures, etc. And I think
Renegade's objective play is highly underrated.
Okay, well,
Renegade's objective is highly underrated. And even Snipe Down IQ and the ability that he brings as an IGL, it's completely underrated as well. Like from Halo to Apex, we realized that Snipe Down's been in the game for what, 46 years? I think he's been playing him maybe going on 45. Doesn't look a day over 43, but maybe going on 45 years.
A day over 43. Okay.
And we're consistently doubting him and the brain that he brings in as he has a brilliant mind.
Definitely.
And even Apex, the same thing. Like, he's played IGL not for his competitive team, but people doubt him. I'm like, dude, have you not heard him talk about the game? He has a brilliant mind for the game, and he can be an IGL. Sorry, I went a little long.
No, you're good. You're killing it. It's not just the brilliant mind for the game. Like, when you hear him talk about Halo, what I love is his mentality shift that's happened after KC. He's doubled down on Halo recently. I think he's in a difficult spot, obviously, because he's become so insanely successful at Apex, and he was incredible at Apex. So he has a community who are constantly nagging him to go back to Apex. Like, imagine how annoying that must be to have, like, so many fans be like, just go back to Apex, just go back to, you know what I mean? He's here for the true love of Halo. He's here because he loves Halo, because he knows he can be the best. And he had this moment.
I get people to tell me to get out of Halo all the time. They just want me gone.
Most people, to be honest, that's fair. I'm sure a lot of people are saying get out of Halo, regardless of how successful you are. That said, though, there was a mental shift that I noticed. Like, it was on one of his streams, and he had like one of those like TED Talk moments where he was doubling down on Halo, and I thought that was so sick to see that he was kind of like, not that he hadn't been putting in that full effort in these tournaments up until now, but it definitely seemed like there was a mental shift, and now he's like bringing his A game, and things are going to change, right? So we'll see. Is what I'm saying is just you can never doubt, like you said, the brilliant mind.
They're
right
playing
there.
for something to prove. They really are,
right?
And not just Spartan. Not just Snipe Down, all of them.
Sure.
Renegade's playing that's something to prove that he left Cloud9. Snipe Down, he said he's out here doing it for his father, who obviously just recently passed. But I thought it was beautiful. And then Spartan again, doing it with his rivalry against Ryan about United. Sorry, continue. But it's more than just a game. When you're playing for something that's more than just a game, that's dangerous, man. Tim taught me that.
I mean, there's a formula there that you're just kind of helping me realize, Tony. That's actually an incredible point. On top of the fact that, like, you've got all these main slayers, and then you still have Falcated, who not enough people know about, right, Tony? You're talking about how underrated, Renegade's objective play is. You're thinking like, okay, Renegade, Spartan, Snipe Down, they're going to trade out, main Slayer. No, I think Fal is going to end up being the main Slayer. In the end of the day, this dude he's just a total beast at the game. We got to watch in Esports Arena against Fnatic, and in that series, it was just Falcated highlights the whole way through. So this man is, once again, unsung hero, insane slaying ability, and we still haven't seen enough of it. And even with a team of main slayers, I still think he might actually be the focal point slayer for the team. So it's just so interesting, like, what to expect out of this team, Tony. I think they can all do it all, which is just crazy. Like you said, they're not hitting the ground running yet. We're just going to have to wait and see. Maybe land performance is the key there, but just insane team on paper, and I can't wait. They're going to get the most of the spotlight, I think, coming into the Super and beyond. And then you have E-United, and we cannot sleep on E-United. I was worried about E-United after the loss of Sparty. Sparty understandably brought a ton to the team, but with this new roster, Tony, I have faith again. What do you think?
Yeah, with United, you have Ryan Newman, Rain, the core, great communication, always come in with a game plan, stick to the game plan, and you'll win. Simple as that. That's how they approach every single game, and it's no surprise. I got the chance to play poker against both of them, and let me tell you, man, they just as ruthless on the poker table as they are on the virtual battlefield.
Yeah.
Manny coming in, and Manny's just untapped potential. He's just untapped potential. Okay. Really is. So he can, his highs kind of like KCP as a whole. His highs are crazy. When he's on fire, he's just going toe to toe with some of the best in the game. He's the best player of the lot when he's on fire. My only issue with Manny is consistency, because sometimes he has some low lows, but his movement's absolutely great. When he's hitting shots, and I think him under Ryan Noob is great because number one. That's exactly it. He's a team player, and he plays to win, and he has no problem following a game plan, especially if one's going to be put onto the table. And if there's any player that can get the best out of him and make him mature and become the player that he's destined to be, I think it's Rhino. I think Rhino's going to pull that out of him, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited from it. And so his former teammates, like Soul Snipe, is also excited from the play on the United. And then you have Suspector, who I called Falcon the most underrated player in the league. Suspector is definitely a top 5 underrated slayer that we have in our league. He is insane. His movement is cracked out. He stuffs the stat sheet. He is everywhere at the same time, and you have to account for him no matter where he is. And so what I like about this United roster is that although they're not the same players, the blueprint, the formula reminds me of their older United squad. I'm not saying Suspector is Spartan, but I'm saying he's damn good.
He fills the role.
And he definitely exactly. And the same for men. Like King Nick is an aggressive player, a pop-off player, man. When he was for that double kill and then spot the grenade on the ground over towards top A, shot the grenade, gets the triple kill, like plays like that. Like that's Manny. Like that's Manny that does that too. Like he makes game-changing plays and turning point plays. This United formula reminds me a lot of before. Now, are you looking for them to consistently get top 4?
I don't know.
That's where I hope so, but I'm not sure. I think this squad is definitely not falling off for top 8, and I think they can contend for top 6 and top 4. But if you're looking at second place in Raleigh, third place in Anaheim, and fourth place at Kansas City, I'm not sure if I'm not sure if that happens right off the rip. Super Orlando and Worlds. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't.
Right. I think the biggest thing is the opportunity that this team has to build to become a top team. I think is bigger than what kind of fell apart with E United with their original roster. So I think the big kind of storyline with E United is they were an incredible team out the gate. Second place Raleigh, right? Third place Anaheim, fourth place Kansas City. So a slow decline was kind of their storyline, and that decline came from like an inner turmoil, I guess, in the team, a couple butting heads. You've got the IGL veteranship of Ryan Noob and then the veteranship of Spartan, who have history. It's interesting going back with Ryan Noob and Spartan, because I remember them on the main stage, Halo 5, like shouting at each other, and then they end up on the same team together, and then they're back to, apparently the shenanigans have started once again. Tony, you linked me a tweet from like this morning or something.
So apparently during 8s, from what I heard, Ryan Noob was teabagging Spartan quite a bit.
Okay.
And so Spartan, he just quickly fires back. Nothing crazy. I'm gonna read it in his own words. That's all I'm gonna say.
It's a Twitter post, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a Twitter post. He says, "I don't know why Ryan Noob is so obsessed with me, but I'll take it as a compliment, considering he wouldn't have a job right now if it wasn't for me. You're welcome, buddy."
Oh man. So, you know what? I'm all for drama by all means. If this is how it's going to go, then go ahead. And you got to love Sparty for the fact that he's just no holds barred. He'll take to Twitter he'll post a tweet, man. He'll go for it, and with Tony, we just roll from there and get to, I guess, enjoy it as viewers. But it gives us a storyline, I think, coming into NA Super, that's for sure. But it also kind of just comes back into the point of, like I said, inner turmoil, right? Something was not going well, despite the fact that they were playing well together, still getting third place, still getting fourth place, but they were clashing. And King Nick, I think, was part of that as well. Like you said, is Ryan Noob. It more so just the play styles were different. King Nick, very explosive player, but not always listening to kind of the game plan. I want to say Ryan Noob's kind of like a mastermind in how he approaches, Halo with his team. The beauty of these two new players is how moldable they are, right? Like you said about Manny, he can explode. He's fast-paced like King Nick, but he's a team player. As far as I know, he's a good listener. He can, kind of fit into the game plan. And then Suspector brings the slaying ability that Spartan, that's removed from the team now that Spartan's because of Spartan's absence. And at the same time, he's a young gun as well. There's also the storyline of like Suspector, of course, he comes from as a duo with Kratos, right? We've never really seen him not play with Kratos. Very interesting to, if anything, you'd think that it would be a comfortable switch, right? Because Kratos is a big personality in himself, right? I'm sure he brings a lot of, an IGL perspective, and I would only assume that it's kind of like a natural kind of shift over for him, but maybe he gets even more freedom this time. There's a big question mark, I think, here for Suspector on how he performs not duoed with Kratos, and we've been wondering this for a long time, right? Like you
he's
said,
fired a shot at Kratos, by the way, too.
Has he? Okay, send me the Kratos Suspector drama. What do we got?
Because Kratos was tweeting a little bit and whatnot. He was putting out some matchmaking stats, and he was putting out some craziness. And with some of the
like
other tweets.
I made you moment.
He was having fun. Yeah, exactly. He was having some fun. Was Kratos, and eventually Suspector tweeted out. And it was so funny. I don't have it in front of me right now, but he tweets out, he said, my ex has been going crazy on Twitter lately. I hope they find peace. And you're over here thinking he's talking about like an ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, maybe
and
not.
then when you read between the lines, he was talking about Kratos. And I love Kratos. He's a tier 1 trash talker, and I love it. But that was a nice little clap back by Suspector. I ain't gonna lie. That was smooth.
And it is kind of like a relationship in a sense, though. Like, they've had some great performances together. You go back into early Halo 5, second place World Championship 2016. Halo 5 is a hell of a performance to kind of start as a duo. So yeah, there's a long-standing relationship. Over time, the competitive community is like, holy crap, Suspector's insane at the game. I'm sure top teams are trying to poach him, but they don't split. Now they've split. What is this man's potential? We're going to find out on E-United. I think is the answer there.
I was going to say, I think we're running a little low on time. Do you want me to rapid? Do you want me to just rapid fire the last 4 teams, or what? Do you want to take our time?
We did well, honestly. The fact that we got through 8, Tony, in the 48 minutes here is like, congrats. We freaking did it. So yeah, let's go through the 4 that are still qualified, and then we'll do a quick run through LVT.
I'm gonna rapid fire all 4 of them real quick.
Let's do it.
We'll change the format a little bit just because I know we're running low on time here. And I think we still have a Q&A on the schedule too. So yeah.
Start asking questions. Hopefully ESA can grab a couple questions, and we'll do our best.
Yeah, the complexity roster, almost like a little bit of half complexity, half luminosity. Monster and Vetra, the winner of the Raleigh FFA, have come together since Monster joined complexity. That team has found greatness ever since, but then a little bit of a low. Now bringing in Nironical and Psycho. Nironical, former teammate of Vetra, longtime teammate of Psycho back in Halo 5. Complexity are absolutely deadly. I love this squad. They play fast, they play right, and they qualified for this tournament through the winners bracket despite having the likes of Fnatic, SSG, Crowd Pleasers, Envoy, and Tony's team. There was a bunch of teams, and Complexity made it through the winners bracket. Right. Joining them in the winners bracket was Oxygen Esports, Triton, formerly of Complexity, Nemesis, and Bohm. Bohm, formerly of ESA Red. Nemesis and Bohm coming over from Built by Gamers. Common, the only common denominator, common player from this Oxygen Esports roster, which once featured Swish as well. Fnatic, you have bringing in Rami over Envoy. Envoy was dropped for this roster, bringing in Rami to try to fit their playstyle a little bit more. Jazero was at one point dropped for like 2 weeks, then came back with like a new, like it came back slaying like crazy. 75 Absolute Slayer Super
with a point to prove,
Super CC having the ability to stay alive, and then you have Lions, who is going by Anime Demons. Burton, your fellow Canadian, he was formerly of Status Quo. Parzelli was a part of that Red Wolves roster that upsetted Oxygen Esports at one point in Kansas City to make it to pro bracket.
And was it Navi as well? They beat Navi as well. I think Red Wolves. Yeah.
A good squad, mortally has IGL capability and go toe to toe with some of the best in the business. And then Hot Shot Ghost, who I absolutely have found a newfound respect for. The man literally is the brain of a veteran in the heart of a top amateur, and he is destined for greatness in this league. T-Squared's big on him too, by the way.
Yeah.
They had a little stint together. Those are the 4 teams that are in pool play coming from the qualifier. Alex, I'll let you. I'll leave the floor to you to take over from there.
You're good. You're killing it, man. Just a little note to add. Lions is the team that upset SSG, by the way. At the end of last weekend,
Game
right?
5.
We had Game 5, grand finals. By the way, it was down to the freaking wire. It was like 50-47 or something to close. Collect hit the most insane ninja off the vending machine in like the purple street as I can't remember, somebody was clambering up and he just hit a crazy ninja. Either way, they didn't win. They got upset by this Lions team. So Burton Parzelli, hotshot mortally, punching through that kind of weight class, and I think a lot of potential with this team. So if you're sleeping on them, you might want to stop. I think they could definitely come up, and I don't think Lions is an org, right? Out of everyone that's qualified, Lions is the only team that is not represented by an org that's currently qualified for the Super. So that is a big deal right there. Keep that in mind. And then we have one more graphic, right? And this is for this weekend, actually. This weekend, Tony and I will be casting twitch.tv/Louis V Titan. We have our the open series starts, and we find out the final 4 teams who will jump into pools by the end of this tournament. So SSG, despite not winning last week, they still have a shot this weekend. And I think we have a graphic for that too. Hopefully we can throw that up if we get it. And that shows some of the other tournaments I think with potential to jump in this weekend as well, Tony, right? Any thoughts on kind of SSG before we just jump into some Q&A?
Yeah, I was huge on SSG. I thought this was a roster that was going to be contending for, kind of similar to where G1 is right now. Walking into any building top 12, contending for top 8, and legitimately coming in and trying to make, top 6 and maybe top 4 is a super stretch goal. That's why I thought SSG were.
Yeah.
There's obviously been some locker room situation that was going in there. I'm not sure if they've gotten past that since, but they need to figure out whatever's going on, because that team is way too talented to not be achieving greatness. But yeah, and by the way, even next week's show or next show that we do, we can even talk about a lot more of these teams too. I know we try to get through a lot of information as fast as possible. And I think we did a really good job.
I agree.
But there's some stuff that I didn't get the chance to talk about that I wish we had more time for. I do want to do the Q&A because we love the people.
Damn right. And note that Tony and I, we don't want to just talk shop. We want to get pro player interviews on the show as well. So if you're watching this, you're a pro player and you're interested in jumping into a discussion like this, like we can grab you maybe for 15 minutes or something and pick your brain.
I'll be sliding into some DMs.
A little bit.
I'll be sliding into some DMs.
Into DM. Tony's the best at that, honestly. Everybody loves Tony. So don't be frightened if he jumps into your DMs looking for an interview. We want to get everybody on this show if we can. In the meantime, like you said, we've got a tiny bit of time. We got, 7 minutes? Ask stuff or in the chat, I guess now, or maybe the
we got questions already. I'll shoot off some questions for you. This first one's for you, Shyway. What is your favorite color?
I don't know. Either red or blue. I like the confidence of red, but I think I'm more of a blue guy. But I wish I'm blue. Let's go blue. What about you, Tony?
I didn't get asked the questions. I'm going to move on to the next one. do you think that? So the next one is dark red. This might be for both of us. This might be for the both of us. I know because we have a bunch of questions I'm trying to get through. Okay. This one's good. Do you think the S7 should be reworked? Rewatching H5 clips reminds me of how much tougher the sniper is to use in this Halo, and makes me wonder if we will ever have some true pop-off clips with the S7 Infinite. So to double back, do you think the S7 should be reworked? He
threw me for a loop for a second when he said the H5 clips remind me of how much tougher the sniper was, like as if you're saying the H5 was way harder. Tony, you go first.
No. I think the sniper was harder to use in this game, but now I'm seeing the clips that people are starting to get right now, and they figured it out. I think the sniper is fantastic. I also say the shock rifle was really fun as well, and that kind of reminds me a little bit more of like how the sniper was H5, because you could be a little bit more aggressive with it, with its extra, with its hip fire potential. But I will say I love the way it is right now, and seeing the players adapt to it so quickly and become absolutely demons with it, trust me, we're seeing plenty of no scopes. Ooh, it's crazy.
I will say there's no shortage of sniper clips, but if they were to tweak anything in the snipe, it would be the bloom. Just get rid of the not even just the bloom, the random inaccuracy in the no scope in the sniper is the only actual issue I think with the sniper. Like, I don't even mind the bloom because you can YY to cancel the bloom out, but even if you do, it's not perfectly accurate, and I think that is, not ideal. Shock is arguably too strong, but I like it the way it is, Tony. But the pros, I know they're conflicted. Nighty says, which team in the AM bracket do you see causing upsets to the higher seeded teams? Tony, you be the expert here.
I mean, the thing is, no matter what matchup SSG come in, I don't think they're really I think they're the favorites no matter what. So I don't know if I consider that an upset if they come in, and make it into the qualifier. But give me SSG. Give me crowd pleasers. Give me, which was Kratos, Piggy, Mines, and King J was their roster 2 players from Built by Gamers. And then give me the Breach. The Breach showed that's 3/4 to that EMGG roster, formerly Esports Arena Blue. They showed us how deadly they can be in the Kansas City, making its open bracket. I think they can get like top 12, maybe top 16. I could be off on that a little bit. But either way, they've already pulled off some crazy upsets. Give me those 3. And whatever team Envoy and Tony end up, because
that's what I was gonna say.
Envoy and Tony are a nasty duo. Whatever they end up on, give me them.
What was their team was like Envoy, Tony, and I think Carmea and someone else.
Maybe Shock, maybe Alex Shock.
Oh, it was Shock. It was Shock. They didn't make it into the graphic. I'll say they're the team to upset.
Well, they didn't make it to top 8. They literally they
didn't make it exactly. They didn't make it top 8.
It was top 4 made it through.
Yep.
Top 6 were 1 round away from making it through. Top 8 were 2 rounds from making it through, and they got upset a little earlier than expected. Let's be honest, a lot earlier than expected.
There's a lot of just dominant teams at this point, though, Tony. But yeah, they did get upset, so maybe they'll come back with a force this weekend.
Maybe one more quick question, if you see one.
I do see a couple. I see. Actual question: does this phase roster win at all? I'm on yes. Landlords asked, do they win, Tony? Or do you think they'll win? I guess.
You have the Super, Orlando, and Worlds, 3 tournaments. I think they're top 4 walking no matter what, contending for top 3 and a legitimate contender for first place. But I have too much respect right now for Sentinels, Optic, and Cloud9 to guarantee they get a big win in 3 tournaments. I think the Super might not be the best performance from them. I think they have an amazing performance at Orlando, even maybe making it to second place, and I think they'll get top 3 at Worlds. Sentinels, Optic, even Cloud9, they've been together for they've been together for so long.
Yep.
It's tough for me to say they win a tournament in the next 3. Do they win one eventually? Absolutely. Season 2? Oh hell yeah. Absolutely.
If they stick together, right? Roster Mania is probably going to happen all over again by the end of the year, knowing how this game tends to work. But I agree. That's a very fair answer, right? Scrims do not suggest that they are at the top in the moment, but they've got time to figure it out. Maybe the Super can be a start to that. Orlando, they're definitely a shoe-in, maybe by Worlds, who knows? But once again, the top 3 are pretty cemented at the moment, so we'll see. Any tips on the beer game from the GOATs is the question by Besser. Tony, you got any tips?
I will definitely with the last question because now we're really running out of time. Beard oil, beard palm, and a nice wash. And I would say get a scented one. Pay a little bit extra. Like I use a vanilla based one.
Oh, wow.
For the which one I need a giant haircut right now, so I don't look like it. I use a vanilla scented palm and a vanilla scented oil. And so it smells really good. And then sometimes what I'll do is I'll do my beard and I'll even like slick it back in my hair a little bit just to get that smell, because it smells really good.
Just vanilla all over is what you're saying. Sounds lovely, Tony. I actually don't do much. I have a beard oil and I have a wax, and I use that basically every time I go on broadcast. There is an oil, there's a wax in here. I wash it maybe like once a week with like a beard wash. I don't honestly do much.
Once a week?
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's mostly just how you shave it, man. Get the neckline and get the face. Like we all have different facial hair. Figure out a way to shave it that looks good would be my key. I've spent years just trial and error, just trying to find something. My chin is here, by the way. Like this is fake. Like my face goes like that.
I'm too afraid
I
because I don't got a
created a
steady
chant,
hand. I might mess
you
it
know?
up. I might mess it up. I don't like to. I don't
I
like to
did.
line
I messed
myself
it up
up
a lot until I finally got it, you know, and then I just kind of maintain at this point.
Strats.
Anyway, sorry. You good?
No, I said strats. You have the
Oh,
strats.
strats. Exactly. We've got strats. And speaking of strats, that is it for the show. We've got a tournament coming up that you guys better stick around and watch. We've got the GOAT, Wes Clutch, who, by the way, Clutch is in the chat right now. Tony, he says that Tony has, I think you had 12 teams in the top 6 is what he said. He's got 12 teams in the top 6 right now.
That is not true. Listen. I said G1 and SSG should be top 12 walking in, contending for top 8, for top 6, and then a stretch goal of top 4. That's Clutch's problem. He don't listen. The team tells him to play the ball. The man doesn't do it. If you listen, maybe you would have won that. Maybe you would have won another championship.
The beautiful thing is you guys can fight it out all you want. I'm going to get off the broadcast. That's it for me. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is our first episode of the YNOT and Shyway Show. Interesting that we're calling it YNOT and Shyway because you're Tony. Everybody calls you Tony. Tony, I'm thinking you might just need to rebrand. I don't know. I've never heard in my life anybody call you YNOT before.
Well,
but
why not
either
just
way,
Tony spelled backwards?
I know it's Tony. By the way, if you didn't know that, that's actually some people have come into my comments and said like, "Oh my God, I just realized that YNOT is Tony spelled backwards." I love you either way, whatever you decide to do with your name. Great first episode. We got through it all in an hour. Love to see it. That's it for now. Enjoy the tournament. I'll see you guys. I guess next Esports Arena. I jump in.